Every NFL team added someone new this offseason, but a handful of those newcomers could completely reshape the 2026 season. The Bills betting on first-time defensive coordinator Jim Leonard that we talked about on last week's update in the NFL to help reinvent their defense while chasing a Super Bowl. Dallas hopes Christian Parker can turn one of the league's worst defenses into an average one. And with that offense, average might be all that they need. Denver finally gave Bo Nix a game-changing weapon by trading for Jaden Waddle, while the Chargers hired Mike McDaniel with one goal, finally unlocking Justin Herbert in the playoffs. And don't overlook Tennessee, where Brian Dable is trying to revive the career of former number one pick Cam Ward. Biggest additions this offseason weren't just star players, they were coaches whose decisions could define the entire NFL season. Every NFL offseason brings new faces, but not every newcomer arrives carrying the weight of a franchise, whether it's a new coach, coordinator, free agent signing, rookie, or trade pickup. These additions could define the 2026 season. And let's start with Arizona. Arizona is obviously a team that has struggled in the past. They have been known to have one of the worst teams in all of sports, worst run teams in all of sports. They got a brand new head coach, Mike LaFleur. Did you see, by the way, did you see the story of this?
No.
About there was the Giants, the New York Giants are hosting the Cardinals at some point in the season. I forget what day it is. And this girl wants to have her dream wedding with her dream suite. And the weekend that she was planning on doing this was a weekend that the Giants were having a home football game. And apparently this hotel is where all the NFL teams stay at. So all the suites are usually reserved for the NFL teams. And so she wrote a letter, an email to Mike LaFleur and like whoever may read it about, hey, I know you guys usually book this suite, yada, yada. You know, it's my dream wedding, all this other stuff. Do you mind if we, make a deal? I'll invite you to the wedding, all this other stuff. It gets to Mike LaFleur. He passes along the owner. The suite that she wants is actually reserved for the owner of the teams that come into play.
Yeah, it's October 4th is when this
and so the owner of the Cardinals released the video after the fact and said, hey, yeah, no problem. You guys can have the suite. I'll stay somewhere else. So that was kind of cool. The Arizona Cardinals to do that, which is kind of a funny little thing. So good for her. She gets her dream wedding, whoever she may be. But I saw it on social media over the weekend. Mike LaFleur, biggest newcomer to Arizona, obviously their head coach. They got a rookie running back in Jeremiah Love. He's going to receive plenty of headlines, but LaFleur is one of the ones responsible for trying to turn this team around. He comes from Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan coaching tree, but he'll have to prove it on his own. He's the brother of Matt LaFleur. I think at this point, I think it's a little tough for Mike to try to turn this organization around. They've been struggling for a long time now. They're not very good from a top standpoint. And I think with the success that Sean McVay has had, all of a sudden anybody that is coached with him, same with Kyle Shanahan, seems to be the young up-and-coming coach, and everybody's trying to find their next Sean McVay. I don't necessarily know if Mike LaFleur is that guy. He could be. But I just think a lot of teams are trying to find their next Sean McVay, and it hasn't worked for a lot of the teams trying to replicate what the Rams have done.
No, absolutely not. And looking at, what these next two teams on the list here, the Bills and the Cowboys, spoke about them last week. They're not looking for a head coach, but looking for defensive with new defensive coordinators in Jim Leonard. Of course, the Buffalo inherits a defense that lost multiple veterans while transitioning away from Sean McDermott, his longtime system. And McDermott is another guy that Buffalo now is trying to replace and try to find their McVay in Buffalo. Dallas, one of the best offenses, one of the worst defenses in the NFL last year. They're trying to hope that they're looking to hope that Christian Parker kind of sparks that defense along.
I don't want to spend too much time on the coordinators. We talked about that last week. I mean, so we didn't talk about Mike McDaniel at all. He wasn't part of that group that we talked about last week, but I think it's an interesting hire by Harbaugh to bring in a guy like Mike McDaniel. I mean, Mike McDaniel to me is a good offensive coordinator. I don't think he can be a head coach. I know they had success early in Miami. I feel like he's in the realm of very good coordinator, just doesn't have what it takes to be a coach. I mean, I thought they tried too heavily to just get all these all-stars on offense and go with the receiver route, and they didn't focus on the trenches. The Dolphins had a lot of problems. But they were fun to watch every once in a while on offense. I think you bring that to a Chargers team that has got a good quarterback in Justin Herbert, that has some weapons on the outside, that have, arguably a not too bad defense. I mean, it's a good team. Harbaugh adding Mike McDaniel to the coaching staff, I think it's going to work out well for the Chargers. Is it good enough to win the Super Bowl? I don't really know, but I like the pickup. I think he's going to help Herbert out. I think the offense is going to be very elite this year for the Chargers.
Yeah, McDaniel does strike me as being like a little too young to be a head coach. You saw like all the stuff of him on the sidelines. You've heard some of the NFL film sound from him down the sidelines. That's not head coach material. He does
I don't
feel
think so
as
either.
though he does feel like he's got more of the personality and the complex to be a coordinator. I think this will actually be a very, very good fit, especially if he can get Justin Herbert to grow his hair back out.
I'm going to skip Seattle. New England Patriots adding A.J. Brown. He's getting up there in age.
Mhm.
I think A.J. Brown getting out of Philly is big. I think he's going to have a pretty good year. I don't think it's like long term going to be that great, but for the New England Patriots to give Drake May I would say a player that wants to prove that he was in the right more than Philadelphia. A first round pick to acquire him's a lot, but I do think it's a big upgrade for this Patriots offense that was right there competing for a Super Bowl last year.
Yeah, and you have a wide receiver now that has a chip on his shoulder that's looking to improve. Drake May is a budding superstar in the NFL, so that's a big target for him. And for a kid like Drake May, he's going to look to A.J. Brown. He's going to look to A.J. Brown a lot. And New England has a history of doing this kind of stuff, going out, getting the big name wide receiver, having them for maybe a year or two before swapping them out. So I don't think this is going to be a long-term fit for New England, not because things aren't going to work with A.J. Brown and Drake May and the Patriot way. I think it's just because it's what the Patriots do. They don't hang on to big name receivers for long before they swap them out again.
Let's look at the Titans. I think the Titans are in the same situation as, well, you know what? I'll rephrase it. Not the Titans. Brian Dable and Mike McDaniel, two guys that are great offensive coordinators, just didn't have what it takes to be a head coach. But like Brian Dable had good offenses in the past, right? And he's get to work with Cam Ward. Cam Ward's very athletic, is a very dynamic player. I know the Titans are not necessarily one of the better teams in the NFL, at least of late. I think a lot of their problems have been from the front office and the fact that they got rid of A.J. Brown and they got rid of Derrick Henry, and they just started chopping off all of these players that they thought they could replace that they never did. But I like Brian Dable coming into Tennessee to work with Cam Ward, and I think this is going to give the offense of the Titans a big lift, because we've seen now Cam Ward, year one, he made a lot of impressive plays. I mean, the guy won a Heisman for a reason. He would look like that when he was at Washington State, started at Incarnate Word, went to Washington State, ultimately went to the University of Miami. He made a lot of great plays last year on a very, very bad Tennessee Titans team. Add Brian Dable in there. Again, a lot of these head coaches that fail are really good coordinators. I like this hire for the Titans.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be good, and especially if he can help Cam Ward show that he is that number one overall pick. If he can really help Cam Ward flourish in Tennessee, even with all the personnel issues that they may have, it'll be a very, very nice little boost for Brian Dable if he wants to get back into the head coaching conversation.
I think Robert Saleh is a good head coach. His defenses are badass. I mean, if he didn't have to deal with Aaron Rodgers or having to work in an organization like the New York Jets, that goes back to always, and then there's the Jets. Robert Saleh is a good coach. Those two guys getting out of New York, I mean, Tennessee might be I think, I don't know if they're going to be worst to first, but they're definitely could be a playoff team. if they play their cards right, and they're in a division that's okay. I like what they've been doing. Of course, the biggest newcomer is the trade for Myles Garrett, and the Rams got Myles Garrett. It got so big that they, to a point are could potentially be bringing what's his name out of retirement. I'm blanking on his name. The defensive lineman with the pit.
Dominican Sue. No, not Sue.
No. Oh, he was just. I'm literally picturing him in my mind right now. But this is a move that is, I think, big for the Rams. And usually, when you look at moves like this, you always go. You always go to can you sustain trading draft picks for the future? Like, could you risk the future? Aaron Donald is who
Aaron
I'm talking
Donald,
about.
yes.
And Aaron Donald's like, oh, I might even come back out of retirement. But when you look at moves like this, you go like, what? They got to need draft picks. You're affecting the future. It's all about now. The Rams have proven that they could do that.
Mm-hmm.
They go bleep those picks. Bleep them picks, man. You don't need it. Myles Garrett adding to a defense that's already pretty solid in the NFL. I like the move for the Rams, and the biggest problem I would have would be the fact that they give up picks and the future, but they've been known to overcome that. And I think the Rams made a big move this offseason. I think Myles Garrett's going to pay dividends.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's for a team that came so close to winning a Super Bowl a couple years ago. And now they're showing that it's time again. They are going for it, and they are coming back with a vengeance. And Myles Garrett certainly shows that urgency for them.
That's our update in the NFL. We're getting closer to training camp. I mean, July rolls around after the MLB All-Star break. It's getting ready for Hard Knocks time.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have more updates as the summer goes.